بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. We're waiting for people to join in, whether it's on Facebook, on YouTube, as well as on Instagram. And just have to say that I'm womaning the station today. So inshallah, it's all going well technically. So for people who are watching on YouTube or Facebook, as well as Instagram, you can just give me a heads up that you can see it and that you can hear us, and then we're good to go, inshallah. So Assalamu alaikum again. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Anisa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wa alaikum assalam. It's great to be back with you.
Ahlan wa sahlan, as the Iraqis say. So I'm Berak Husain. I'm a psychotherapist in Ottawa, Canada, and I do a lot of mental health advocacy. And we have my dear friend and colleague, Sister Anisa Diab from the States, who doesn't need an introduction because she's well known herself in what she does, and she's an amazing human being, mashallah. She is also a therapist, and I'll pass it on to her to introduce herself and what she does, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining, and I'm so happy to be back on with Sister Berak, who herself doesn't need an introduction. Mashallah, we were just talking about how she's been working so hard lately to put on all of these amazing topics and has been connecting different providers in the community to address issues that are taboo, issues that need to be talked about. And I know she's been working really hard, mashallah, to put this together. So I hope you'll follow Insta Lobaid and follow the work that she's doing, mashallah.
So, sorry, that's just the technical stuff in the background. Sorry about that. Thank you, Habibti. Thank you. Bless you. And so today, inshallah, we're going to be taking a look at the topic of how to manage depression and anxiety, especially during these times. And again, this is what week four and a bit now, I believe. And it's been a lot of challenges in terms of adjusting to what is happening, trying to understand what is happening out there, how it impacts us, and how it impacts our mental health. And we've had some general discussions around that to begin with, but now we're taking a closer look at in terms of how it impacts anxiety as well as depression, and how we can cope with that. And alhamdulillah, we've gotten lots of questions from people who've sent them in ahead of time, and the sister and I, inshallah, will go through them. And you are more than welcome to please, during the live, send the comments as well. And I think I have to enable this on Instagram, I believe. Yes, I was told I have to enable comments. There we go. Now you can send in comments on Instagram. Yes, there we go. I got it. I got this. I got this technical stuff.
You got this. You got it, sister.
Gotta have the positive attitude, inshallah, to get it. We got this. Khair, inshallah. So again, yeah, we were looking at how we adjust and how there's a lot of loss and grief during this process. And this time, as we're trying to figure things out, whether it's loss of the job, loss of the freedoms that we've had, loss of the interactions with friends and families, and also the reality and the very disheartening and heartbreaking reality of losing people and loved ones as well to this, and how to cope and deal with that. But if we take it a step deeper in terms of our topic today, people could already be dealing with depression and anxiety before the pandemic. This pandemic could have triggered also this if people were not already experiencing it. And for those who are already experiencing these mental health challenges, it could be that the pandemic could trigger it even more. So people who are dealing with depression, they could feel even more depressed and more isolated. And people who have anxiety, of course, the anxiety could be flared even more. So inshallah, today our intention is to address these issues and these struggles. And we're open to questions that are topic related, inshallah. So I'm not sure here. I think we got kicked out of Instagram.
That's okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I got kicked out. So I'm just going to try and get back in again. So we'll keep talking. So while we're doing that, I'm going to ask the first question. And sister, if you can answer that, and then while you're doing that, I'll take care of what's going on here with the Instagram. So the first question says, how to defeat laziness? Toxic laziness, which makes or creates or contributes to depression.
Yeah, so it's really important to develop insight into what's causing the laziness, to get down to the root issue. Is it, poor sleeping habits? Is it poor nutrition? Is it engaging in a lot of excessive time wasters, video games, TV, things that are just causing you to have that sedentary lifestyle, even lack of exercise? All of those things can contribute to an overwhelming sense of laziness. So my recommendation is first get to the root of it, and then, create some new habits, try to develop a new plan, and write down, what are my priorities? What do I wish that I was doing instead of just, sitting on the couch all day, or make a mission statement for your life. If this was your last year on earth, what are some of the things that I would be doing right now? So commit yourself to an hour, 2 hours a day where you say, I'm going to work on addressing this goal, and start from there. And inshallah, when you make it a daily habit, they say it takes about 40 days to make a habit sustainable. So the more you're persistent with it, the more you keep up, inshallah, you'll be able to get out of that laziness. What about you, Sister Berak? Did you want to?
I'm still trying to figure this out. Apparently people cannot hear us. Okay. Not on Instagram. I'm trying to see if it can be heard. Let me check here on.
That laziness.
Okay, we can be heard on, alhamdulillah, on Facebook.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just keep talking. If the people on Instagram can just hold on, we'll figure this out. I think what you said is very holistic in terms of trying to figure out the basis of taking care of that. And so I don't have much to add to that. So the next question has to do along the same lines in terms of how do we stop binge eating while dealing with depression?
So I really think that when you look at binge eating in general, a lot of it has to do with using food as a form of comfort, using it as a way to fill some kind of void that you're facing. So again, figure out what your triggers are, try to document the times when you notice you binge eat the most. Is it towards the end of the day when you're sitting on the couch watching TV? If you notice when it usually is happening, you're able to better control and manage your triggers that are causing it. And when you think about binge eating, I mean, so I'm talking from an angle more of comfort eating that a lot of people deal with, but there are people who have eating disorders, right? And actually have binge eating disorders. And with those folks, they really need to get professional help to manage that issue. But a lot of us do experience comfort eating, where we rely on food as a source to relieve our stress and anxiety. And when you're at home and there's not much going on, a lot of times it's very tempting to just reach for a bag of chips. So it's really important to engage in practicing mindful eating, where you're really trying to be present with the food that's in front of you. You're not, it's very easy to get distracted on your phone, and then you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just ate all of that, and you were distracted on your phone, you were distracted with other things. And so you didn't even realize how much you inhaled in that moment. I always remember what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family recommended, which is, to take 1/3 of your stomach, you fill it with food, 1/3 for liquid, and 1/3 for air. So when you do that, you're eating more mindfully. You're not eating to the point of being sick or overly full. Just taking that time to say, okay, I'm going to listen to my body. I'm going to take 20 minutes, making sure that I listen to that message that I'm full. Actually takes the body 20 minutes to get the message that you're full. So the slower you eat, the more you chew your food, the better you're able to recognize that moment that your body's saying to you, okay, that's enough now. You can go do something else. So it's just about being very mindful.
And it is all about that mindfulness and awareness when you are eating, and also eating with the 4 food groups and trying to eat healthy that way, and we get cravings, which is normal, especially if we're being very inactive these days. That can also be very stressful and disruptive to our eating habits. But
Mhm.
it's so tempting when you are stressed to eat. Some people don't eat when they get stressed. So that's interesting too, how it's the opposite sometimes, right? So it can be challenging when you're just tempted to eat that, but it is about discipline, especially with Ramadan coming up. I think it's a good time that this is happening right now during Ramadan to give us the opportunity to be able to practice self-discipline, and that's what Ramadan's all about. And also when we do break that fast afterwards, to be careful and mindful again in what we're eating and what we're putting into our body, that can help us the next day during the fast, right? So being aware that way. Now, I'm not getting back into Instagram here. I'm not sure what the problem is. It's so what I am going to try to do here is to go live off of another device. So only your voice is going to be heard, Anisa. Your picture is not going to be shown on Instagram. So that was my backup plan. So while I'm figuring that out, I'm going to go to the next question. How do you know if it's anxiety or waswas? And how can I overcome it? It overpowers my salah. So perhaps we can look at the difference or understand what is depression and what is waswas, and how to work with that.
Yes. Do you want me to take it away? You're still working on some things, I think.
Right?
I
am. I'll add on anything if I need to. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? Before we keep going, I do want to distinguish between like sadness and depression, and then like stress versus anxiety, because these things, we use these words interchangeably, but they're actually very different. So we're all have experienced sadness, sad days. Maybe someone that we know is sick right now with this virus. Maybe we just, lost a good friend, or we experienced some sort of financial loss. So all of us are going to feel some level of sadness and grief right now. However, there are some of us that have depression and clinical depression. And a lot of times you hear people throw that word around and say, I was so depressed the other day, or man, I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't seem to feel happy. I'm just a little depressed right now. For people with clinical depression, it's like a chronic thing. It's not something that you experience 1 or 2 days. It's an underlying sadness that lasts for a significant period of time, where you lose pleasure in things that you usually enjoy. You actually just feel sad, even if there's no rhyme and reason for it. You feel sad, you feel a lack of motivation. And it's people with clinical depression, they describe things like not being able to get out of bed in the morning. We're talking about something that's affecting your level of functioning, affecting your relationships, and it really impacting those things in a negative way. So, and anxiety also, we've got to distinguish between that and stress, because we all experience stress, right? But not all of us experience an anxiety disorder. So for those of us who have an anxiety disorder, imagine they're already struggling with that. And then here comes the pandemic, right? So it makes all of those symptoms even worse, because with someone with anxiety disorder, again, there's this is not anything that is in the immediate future that is a thing of danger. There's no impending imminent problem happening, but with somebody who has anxiety, they will begin to imagine things that are happening. So it's kind of like that feeling of leaving the oven turned on, and when you leave your house, you ask yourself, oh, did I leave the oven on? It's that worry behind your head constantly that something is going to go wrong. And the ways in which anxiety can be really detrimental to one's mental health is they'll might experience phobias, may experience obsessive compulsive disorders, panic attacks, even resort to certain coping strategies such as self-injury to try to deal with the anxiety. So I just wanted to distinguish between these two before we go along, because I know some people are using these words interchangeably, but the answer depends on whether it's, sadness versus depression, or anxiety versus actual, everyday stress. With this question, how do you know if it's anxiety or waswas? How can I overcome it because it's overpowering my salat? Now, waswas is, when I think of this word, I think specifically of Surah Nas. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas, malik nas, ilahin nas, min shar al-waswas al-khannas, right? الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. So basically in this surah, you're seeking refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is particularly from the whispering, the waswas of the shaitan. And not just mentions the waswas from shaitan, but also from human beings as well. So it's really important to recognize that this is, from an Islamic standpoint, waswas is real, it's legitimate, but also our own internal struggles with our nafs and our own anxieties are legitimate too. And, how do you know if it's one or the other? It's very, you really can't tell, to be honest, if it's one or the other, and it may be both. It may be coming both from yourself and externally, and it might be coming even from external messages that human beings are giving you, not just jinn. So really, it's important to treat both of it together. So if you feel like, you're starting your prayer and you're distracted, before you get down and actually begin your salat, set the tone for your prayer, recite the four clothes, An-Nas, Al-Falaq, Kafirun, Ikhlas, all those things together. And then inshallah, you'll be able to address the waswas aspect of it. Then the other part of it is just to make sure that you're taking a few minutes before your prayer to actually get in the mood for the prayer, like, recite adhan, take some deep breaths, get in the zone. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm connecting correctly. Sister Berak, what is it that I need to do? Get on to the Instagram?
Yeah, so Assalamu alaikum. We've had some issues from streaming from all three places. So if the sister, if you can join us now from Instagram, I've just gone in there. So people who are on Instagram, can you hear us? There we go.
All right, gotcha.
All right, so yeah, you can, you just want to move the camera a little bit, just lower the sound. Thank you everybody for being patient with us while.
Okay.
Just lower the sound.
I'm gonna lower the sound.
Completely turn it off, so the other device doesn't do that.
Okay.
We're good? All right.
I think we're good.
I can still hear your other device. Whatever sound you have, just lower it.
Okay. All right. I have muted my other device, which was the Zoom.
I have muted my other device, same thing here, which was the Zoom.
But I can hear myself.
I'm hearing you on your side. I'm hearing me playing out of your side.
What is that sound? Where's that sound coming from?
Where's that sound coming from?
Yeah, there's an echo. We're trying to figure it out. So if you can just be patient with us for a few moments, we'll figure it out, inshallah. Okay, do you want to say something, sister? Let me hear you.
Okay, testing. How's that?
Any more echo?
I don't think so. I turned the volume down pretty low on the phone, so.
Okay. Yeah, I turned off the sound over there, but I think the sound is coming from somewhere else.
Can you hear me speak now?
I can.
Okay.
Do you want me to mute my Zoom?
If we mute the Zoom, then we can't hear you at all.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to do. You tell me.
Okay, for those people who are listening, can you just give us a heads up if it's really bad? or you can hear it clearly? Is it all right? Just
Is it okay? Testing?
I think it's okay now. It's not as bad as it was before. I think it's okay now. There's a bit slight echo, but it's definitely manageable.
Okay, some people are saying it's hearing better.
Okay, it's better than before, so people can still hear from what I'm seeing here. Khair, inshallah. So let's get back to the topic. We're going to ignore the echo. I don't hear it anymore, so inshallah khair. And I'm not dabbing, I'm coughing. Last time I coughed like that, people were saying I was dabbing. I'm not dabbing. Alhamdulillah. So Sister Anisa was describing the difference between waswas as well as anxiety, or depression, was it? And so if you just want to quickly explain the difference again and then relate it to the question, please.
Okay, sure. So yeah, the question was, how do you know if when you're about to engage in prayer and you feel that something's overpowering your salat, especially if you're distracted, how do you know that that isn't waswas or it isn't actually your own anxiety? And what I was saying is, to treat both at the same time, because you can't really distinguish, right? Like, we're not able to see a little shaitan coming to us. So treat both as if that is what's happening. I recommend that every day recite the 4 qul's, An-Nas, Falaq, Kafirun, Ikhlas. And that's the time right before your salat. If you feel like, wow, there is too much going on, waswas, then recite those 4 surahs, inshallah. And then if you feel like it is anxiety happening, it may be because a lot of times, so we forget salat is a practice which involves mindfulness, a practice which involves mindfulness and complete concentration. And most of the time throughout the day, our minds are everywhere, all over the place, right? So now your mind is forced to stop and actually focus on one thing, and that's not easy. So naturally, your brain doesn't stop working, doesn't stop thinking about all that's happening. And so what you have to do is just ease into the salat. With anything in life, if you're doing a whole bunch of things and then you want to sit down and study, like, you have to ease into studying. You can't just, okay, now I'm going to study. You're not like a robot. You have to give yourself time to ease into things, and that includes salat. So that's my recommendation. If you feel like waswas is an issue, just get in the zone for prayer. Maybe start with adhan instead of going right into the prayer. Start with adhan. Just take a few deep breaths, and then you're entering prayer more mindfully.
Beautiful. It brings me also to this is not here, but something I've often wondered, especially studying psychology, but also looking at it from a client point of view. What's the difference between, let's say, fear and anxiety? And so fear is more focused on something we are aware of and we can see, like the flight or flight response. Anxiety is more along the lines of things that we cannot see that we worry about, whether it was in the past or the future. So this kind of reminds me of that as you were explaining that. Yeah. So we have some live questions coming in. One question says, does social media cause depression? And then to what degree? And we laugh with this one. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of research out there on how social media affects one's mental health. And you never look at any study and say that one causes the other. You look at the research can support different things, but we never see any causality in research between, social media and depression. But what we do see is that overuse of social media does have negative mental health outcomes. And one of the reasons for that is it has to do with the way in which the person interprets the information that's incoming. So if you're looking at the feed, right, and you're saying like, oh my gosh, like, oh, I wish I was on that cruise right now, enjoying that beautiful beach, right? You're comparing yourself to other people and what their experiences are. And I think that's where we
where a lot of folks get stuck.
That's where a lot of folks get stuck, is they think, oh, look how happy their life is, and how amazing everything is for that person. They have such a good marriage. I wish my husband would take me out and do a hashtag date night too. And like, it's very easy to look at what you're seeing and then internalize it and compare yourself. So when you do that behavior, it's called compare and despair. And it's a cognitive it's a cognitive distortion that you have to work on, and you can do it in many different ways, but social media is a good example of that. So if you compare and despair, you overuse it, you're easily triggered maybe by certain things that you see that are disturbing to you, maybe coming up on your feed. It can definitely have a negative impact on your mental health. It's all about how it's being used. I think in moderation, it's a great tool. Just like today, like we're using it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Berak has been using it amazingly over the past several days. So it can be an amazing tool, but with moderation.
Moderation, that's the key thing, whether it's what we're eating, whether it's an exercise, whether it's people, whether it's Netflix, whether it's books, whether it's anything like that, right? And somebody mentioned on YouTube here some very good contribution to the question earlier about eating is detoxing the body helps to remove cravings. And I can attest to that somewhat. I've been doing a detox the last 2 weeks after I realized, because I've not been as active, how much weight I've gained with the rich food that I have been cooking and taking pleasure in doing as part of the quarantine here, is to enjoy this need, but also making it an enjoyable thing, right? So you need to cook to eat, but making it something really fun for myself and my family. But I've also noticed the impact of that, even though it's healthy foods, some of it's a little bit rich. So what I've done is the detox, and it's just basically eating fruits and vegetables and proteins, eliminating dairy, as well as dark meats. What else? Carbs, of course. And what was interesting with the amount of water that I was drinking and the amount of greens, food, of vegetables and fruits, I wasn't really craving much sweets, I noticed, until the end of the first 4 or 5 days. And I gave up. I gave it a break over the weekend, and I was eating the other foods that I wasn't used to eating for about a week. And it's amazing how the body didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
My body did not like the carbs and the chocolate and the milk. It did not like that because it had gotten used to the system. You're supposed to do this for 12 days straight. I didn't do it for 12 days straight. I did it for a few days, weekend, and then went back to it. You're supposed to do it straight. But again, when you do that detox, getting rid of all these extra things in your body, subhanAllah, you won't have as much cravings. Your body gets used to this healthy way of eating, and then you slowly incorporate full meals back. So that's another way of managing binge eating as well, is if you follow some kind of routine, some kind of program. And this was something that I was inspired by through social media, through my friend who kept showing pictures of her smoothies. I'm like, well, I've done that. Let me follow an actual routine. So that was a good point that the sister brought up on YouTube, that you can try detox to help manage that as well. It's different. It works differently for everybody, right? So yeah, so another question on YouTube says, what would you suggest if we try to connect with people and no one asks about you? If this has been a normal for those already diagnosed with depression, how do we cope with the extra loneliness now?
So if nobody asks about you,
when you try to connect, I didn't quite catch
when you try to connect, I didn't quite catch what you said. Okay.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, it's a sad reality that a lot of times the people that we're closest to, we think that we are supportive of us and where we are in our journeys are going to be there. And unfortunately, a lot of times we realize and we're disappointed by the fact that really, when you're in your time of need, people are often not there. So, and that's why the saying goes, a friend in need is a friend indeed, right? Because it's very hard to find somebody who is going to be there for you. And especially with something like depression, which doesn't, you can't physically see it like you can, somebody losing their hair from cancer or having a broken arm. So I think people, when they think of someone who has depression, they think somebody who's just like falling apart
looks so sad all of the
apart and look so sad all of the time, and they've got like a certain look about them that indicates that they're depressed. But many times people with depression, they wear a mask and they'll be smiling a lot. They're, you know, I think about people like Robin Williams,
Yes.
that actor who
That's
ended
who
his
came
life
to
by
my mind.
suicide.
Yes.
Really one of the most jolly people, known for being, you know, a comic, and, you know, ended his life by suicide. And, you know, so it's important to recognize that depression doesn't have a certain look. And because of that, we also have to realize
the nature of depression
that it mutes a person's ability to reach out for help as well. So if the person is reaching out, that's a big deal for that person, because it's really hard for a lot of folks with depression to reach out. So part of being a good friend is to check in. How are you doing? Once a week even. How are you feeling? How's your mental health? Do a little mental health check-in. That's part of being a good friend, is not just to care about each other and joining good and forbidding evil, and, you know,
Mubarak, but also
caring about each other's mental well-being is part of being a sister, brother in faith or in humanity.
And go deeper with just the formalities of what you're saying, is to go deeper, ask deeper questions, be a little bit annoying perhaps to maybe, I'm not saying be intrusive or, you know, get in their faces virtually, but to show that you do care. And like you were saying, sister, not just in times of good times are you there, but also in these difficult times. And a lot of questions are related to what we're saying right now, is how to avoid the anxiety these days, and how do we deal with loneliness and depression. And even before the pandemic, these struggles were already there. How would you normally deal with them then? And then reassess perhaps and look at how you can deal the same way given the circumstances. Mm-hmm. So in terms of loneliness and depression, is to call, like we were saying, keep calling to people. But if the people who are not responding, perhaps they have their own circumstances. Perhaps they're dealing with depression. Perhaps they're in an abusive household where they can't really talk to other people. That's also something to consider.
It's important not to take it too personal if that happens. And I think that, like, sometimes we rely, a lot of people that I talk to seem to rely on their friends for therapy, and they're really not ready to receive sometimes the types of issues and the tough situations that are being presented. So I think that having a professional, also therapist that you can work with, who can help you through, is a great, not just alternative, but it's necessary, because friends can't be relied on to help you, only, you know, to help you to get through your mental health related issues.
Yeah, and they can be there to listen and entertain or be active listeners, but they can't do the actual therapy to get you through that process. That's where we come in, especially as objective third-party people, because if you have friends and family, excuse me, they don't have the skills per se. And second, it's quite heavy. They don't know, and we hear this from friends and family. I don't know how to support my friend or family. And sometimes it becomes too much. It becomes heavy on them. That's not to say you don't share with them, because then we hear the other flip side of a client saying, I don't want to burden them. So it's about, yes, getting the support from them, but also if it gets too much, make sure that you use the professional supports. The phone lines are still available right now. In fact, they've probably been amped up right now, whether it's in the UK, whether it's here in North America, especially for, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow, but in terms of domestic violence and abuse, texting now, messaging has been the norm more than calling, because it's hard to speak in front of the family or whoever's around in the house who's inflicting the abuse.
Yeah, crisis line is a really good point. I mean, never rely on one person to be your lifeline in life. I mean, you've got to have varied numbers of resources, whether it's crisis hotlines, your mental health provider, family, friends, even your own doctor. It's really, you've got to create your own support system, and it's going to involve more than one person, definitely, even outside of your circle of friends.
And I find that too, Anisa, and you've probably seen this as well, is that sometimes we cannot get help from the ones that we expect it most or want it most from. Could be from the family or even from friends. We want that support from them, but we cannot get it from them. Does that mean that we give up on asking for support or trying to find it? No, you can get support elsewhere. SubhanAllah, you will end up finding that support from other places, other services, or other networks. So we've got to be creative in terms of trying to reach out to get that. Don't give up on finding the right supports, especially during this time. It's vital to have that support around you.
For
Yeah.
sure. And that's a wonderful point. And also that's the same for when you have a mental health professional that you're working with and you realize, oh, this person is not what I thought they would be, or they're not helping me. A lot of people say, oh, they throw up their hands and call it quits. Well, I'm done with the whole, getting a shrink deal because they're not helpful. All they did was sit and listen to me talk the entire time. So if somebody is not a good fit for you as a mental health professional, also don't give up. Keep looking until you find somebody that is a good fit for you, that will work well with you. Just like a doctor, maybe your doctor, your primary care physician originally is not somebody that you feel comfortable around, that you like working with. So you don't just say, I'm never going to see a doctor again, right? You go and you find another doctor. So the same with getting mental health support. A lot of people complain because they've had bad experiences, and it's a shame because there are people out there that are incredibly helpful, but you won't know unless you keep trying to find that right person.
And it is about the right fit sometimes. The therapist can have a great set of skills. However, you don't have the vibe, you don't have the right chemistry. And that happens all the time. It's okay. We won't be offended if you go find somebody else. The key thing is to get the support. And there's a lot of love and support here that I see with live comments where people are saying, sometimes we get failures in life and sometimes we carry that failure for a very long time thinking about it. So how do we forget about single failures and be positive? Thanks for your efforts. That's an interesting question and comment here about positivity. And this is where you kind of focus on that one thing. And if you put all your energy on that one failure, that's a lot of heavy negative energy that you're holding on to when you focus on that one thing. Rather than seeing it as a failure, let's reframe that and look at it as an opportunity, a learning opportunity. What went wrong? What could I do to improve? What have I learned from this? How can I improve this for the next time? So rather than focusing on, sorry, you take it, Anisa.
No, I think you're right, very well. It's about reframing the way you look at failure in life. And like, I think about this, especially in relationships. I know there was a couple of, I might be jumping a little bit, but there were a couple of questions about failed relationships that didn't work out for marriage, or, failed friendships. And you can look at it as a failure, or you can say, as rather than a failure, what can I learn from this? What did I learn about this opportunity? Because I personally don't believe that Allah puts people into our life just by coincidence. I believe that people come into our lives for a reason, to teach us something about ourselves. And so especially when we go through difficulty, what we have to say is not, oh, that failed, I was a failure, that relation. No, you learned something. There was something you learned about yourself through the process. And that's what you need to put your focus on, is how you've grown as a person. And those areas of weakness or whatever that you may have realized you didn't even have, now you'll be able to carry that into the future with more confidence, because okay, this is what I need to work on down the road. You won't know unless you experience those challenges.
Ahsanti, very well said. So another question, I'm really in a bad space of coughing today. What can we do as a community and peers to help one another, especially in these times of social media and lack of meaning? Very good question. What are your thoughts on that, sister?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just asking the question, checking in. And again, what we talked about earlier, calling people up, what can I do to help you right now? What is it that you're struggling with? That's because everyone's struggling in a different way right now. And sometimes we assume that we know what's going to help somebody else. But the best thing to do is just to say, what do you need? How might you be struggling right now? Is there anything I could do to help? And asking that directly to community members as well as the community as a whole, your masjid, what to do, especially with Ramadan, to get creative and to keep the spirit alive. Maybe there's a way you could lend your skills or your talents during this time. So just getting creative and thinking outside the box. What talents has Allah given you? What skills has Allah given you that you might be able to contribute to the community? Because this really is a time of service that we all need to pool our resources together, and we're all good at certain things that some of our other peers may not be as good at.
And this kind of reminds me of a comment here. Somebody put that they've continued to do these types of support groups, but it just doesn't continue, or people just kind of step out. I would say keep doing that, keep having that, even if it's one or two people. I believe during this time people will reach out more if we do have these supports in place, even if it didn't work out before. The sister is asking for dua here because she's thinking to take hijab. I think she means wearing hijab. I don't think she means take off here. So inshallah, let's do a collective dua for the sister who, inshallah, is starting this journey. So blessings and du'as to you. And the person who mentioned, inshallah, so somebody mentioned I've created a support group before, but it ended up dying out. I wonder why. Think about perhaps what didn't work and look at how it could possibly work now, especially that people are reaching out and that they want this kind of support and help. Let me see here. Some questions we have. Really enjoying the conversations. Are you seeing them as well, Anisa?
Yeah. Great questions. I'm looking just on the Instagram.
Yeah. And okay, so we have a question here. I'll get back to our list, but we just also have a question here. I wish I could put on the jolly face outside. It would look functional. And should I tell my friends to check in with me for the sake of my mental health? I think that's a really good idea, especially friends that you do trust. You can let them know, hey, you know what? Can you check in on me? And these are people that you would trust, not just anybody, people that you're close to that you could say, can you give me a call or check in on me? That could go a long way. And if it's somebody who's willing to do that, I think it takes a lot of courage to do that.
For sure. And you disclosing that you realize that friend also is struggling with that mental health related issue, a different type of mental health related issue, and it makes them open up more about what they're struggling with, and you have this nice buddy system then where you can both feel like open to checking in. So many stories of like people I know saying that they didn't realize their friends or family were struggling with a mental health related issue until they self-disclosed that they were seeing a counselor or getting help for something. And the amount of relief that they experienced to hear that friend or family member say, oh my God, me too. I'm glad I'm not the only one. And I'm glad I can be open about it with you, because there is unfortunately just so much stigma that comes along with sharing that information. Not all the aunties and uncles really, get it. And, I was just talking the other day to a young sister who was being called crazy and possessed by jinn. And, she was struggling with severe mental health related issues and trauma from her past. And she was on the verge of killing herself because, everyone just thinks I'm crazy and something's wrong with me. And why should I even, she just felt like an outcast in the community. So we need to realize that this messaging, not only is it hurtful, but it literally is killing people. We tell people that because they become so discouraged, that's the thing that puts them over the edge to end their life. And we've got to be very, very careful about the messaging, but also if you are on the receiving end of that, like I think, somebody was asking, I don't know if you want to jump to this question, but like, what do you say to people who just tell you to trust in Allah, and when you're struggling with your mental health, like just have to
That's the classic thing, do more dua, read more Quran. If you have more faith in God, then you shouldn't have an issue. These are the misconceptions that we have around mental health in Islam. And this is something I think we deal with all the time, whether it's from the elders in the community or people with different cultural backgrounds or different ideas, or just not understanding what mental health is. We hear this all the time. And so I always come back with with this idea and this thought, okay, so if you have a headache or you break an arm or a leg, are you going to do dua in that moment for that headache to magically disappear or for the bone to magically heal? and men.
Yeah.
So when you put it into that perspective with the physical illness, then it kind of becomes a little bit more clear. Absolutely. Faith, spirituality, prayers, rituals have a huge impact on our mental health, and a positive impact. But there's a time or place for it. When somebody's on the verge of thinking about taking their life and they're deeply depressed or highly anxious, their brain, the function of their brain and the emotional center of the brain is not in a place to get that in that moment. So it's like this, flared up. The amygdala part of the brain is just flaring up. And so we need to bring it down. How do we do that? Well, there are coping strategies that we talk about in terms of grounding. Those who joined yesterday, our Sister Feiruz talked about different strategies that we could do with our children for grounding ourselves. So it's baking, smelling the fresh baked cookies. So deep breaths, grounding ourselves, and moving our bodies in certain ways. So these are just distractions or strategies you can do. But of course, there's the actual therapy as well as medication. That's something also that sometimes people are very wary of when we take a look at medication in terms of treating these illnesses. What they do, though, is they help with the symptoms so that you can actually do the things that you need to do, function. Yeah, so there's a variety of different answers for that, but this is the one that I usually give when it comes to comparing mental illnesses to physical illnesses. And how do we do that? Well, once we've managed the symptoms and brought you down to functioning baseline, then we can take a look at additional supports as part of the treatment, which Anisa and I truly believe in the impact of faith, spirituality, religion, and healthy rituals that can help bring people back to baseline function, but also part of the treatment as well.
Yes. Yeah, people see it as mutually exclusive sometimes. It's like either you do dua and you rely on Quran and you have tawakkul, or if you do anything else, this is like some kind of bid'ah, something going against Islam. Even like one of the comments I had that was sent in before this is, is everything you're saying today going to be based completely on Quran? And we as Muslims, we don't just base everything in life on Quran, right? Like we base things on, the latest science, the latest research, the teachings of the Prophet and his family. Islam is a holistic religion. I mean, and I love the example you gave. Absolutely. If somebody called you up right now and said, like, I'm sick with coronavirus, like, would you just tell them, have tawakkul on Allah, everything will be okay? No, you would say, oh my God, how are you? Are you okay? Like, are you taking medicine? Are you in the hospital? What's the deal? What's your, you would show a little bit of concern and care. And the problem is we don't recognize that the brain is susceptible to pathology, just like other organs in our body are susceptible to pathology. And we need to recognize that that's present as a Muslim community. So I love the way you put it.
I love the way you put it. That's why we work so well together. Woo, high five. A literal virtual high five, huh?
Exactly.
Somebody just added a beautiful comment here in terms of spirituality. So I think spirituality really helps, especially from my own experience, but human beings also need to live a life of meaning, meaningful conversations, meaningful activities, helping people, etc. And somebody mentioned here, this is the taking it a level deeper in terms of spirituality, prioritizing life of this world over hereafter could also potentially lead to depression or removal of peace or not. And this truly depends on who you are, I would say. This depends on your faith beliefs, how much you believe and whatnot, but it could contribute to that. Absolutely, because this is talking about materialism in essence, right? Whether you have a faith background or not, if you're focusing only on materialistic aspects of this world, that is bound to make you feel a bit down. If you're constantly comparing yourself with others, especially through social media, if you're only focusing on getting the Prada rather than your sajada bag, your prayer bag, things like that, obviously when you get caught up in monetary pleasures and just meaningless, frivolous things of this world, of course, it's going to impact you, whether it's from a spiritual aspect, a psychological aspect. We know this has a huge impact on that. What are your thoughts, sister?
I absolutely agree. I mean, I think about these celebrities who have millions of dollars and mansions and anything they could possibly want at their fingertips. And you hear some of them having the most, dysfunctional lives in the background, and you're getting caught up in addiction and drugs and on the verge of ending their lives, sometimes actually ending their lives. And then I hear stories of people that live very simple lives, like living in a tent somewhere, like their living is
out in the woods, connecting with nature out in the woods.
yeah, they're so happy. Why? What's the difference there? The Imam Ali has a saying that, what is it? Materialism is not that you should own nothing, but it's that nothing should own you, right? So that's beautiful to me. When you become owned by your stuff, you lose meaning, you lose a sense of purpose and why you're here. Even other people around you, you don't know their intentions. Are they coming to you just because they want something? They want some of that money, some of that, glow that you have with your own wealth. But when the difference here in the scenario, the person who's poor and has nothing, but they're smiling and they're happy and they're content, what's the difference? It's the mindset. We all have the gift of choice in how we want to perceive the world around us, right? And so when you choose a mindset of gratitude, you get more. It doesn't matter what kind of storm you're in life. You can always find calm within the chaos when you focus on gratitude. And Allah says in the Quran, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, like when you thank me, I give you more, right? So you get more when you focus on the things you're grateful for in life.
And this also, when we're talking about materialism and how it impacts your mental health and depression and whatnot, the idea of being attached. And you hear this from scholars, and you hear this from even experts in psychology and mental health. Yes, enjoy the beauty of this world, enjoy the things that are around you, but don't get attached to them. This attachment to the latest digital gadgets that we have, or this app or that app, or what we're dressed, does this truly give you fulfillment? And I see that with a lot of young people who, because working in a university setting, I see that with a lot of young people who feel that they have to have the latest this or that, or the latest fad, or how they speak, and just to be accepted and connected by other people. And this hugely impacts people's mental health, the need to be accepted and just accepted by their peers, but also that person being attached to these things that don't have meaning, that don't give meaning, and probably contribute to their suffering, whether it's comparing themselves to others, their self-esteem, their sense of self, who they are, their journey, their school, their family. So it's so interconnected on so many levels. It's great that we're getting this discussion on all of these mediums, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We've left our questions here, so I'm going to jump back to the questions that were sent ahead of time. So here is, I think we've already answered this question. So what do you say to people who just tell you to trust Allah when you're struggling with your mental health? We've already answered that. What if you have anxiety and you don't feel good when doing the things you really love doing? I think it's an incomplete question, but yeah, we can play with that.
When somebody tells me that they've stopped enjoying what they love doing, that to me sounds a lot like depression, because that occurs a lot where people, let's say they love playing soccer, they stop showing up with their team to play. They've loved going to the MSA and they've stopped coming all of a sudden. When somebody exhibits that behavior, there's a loss of motivation there. And it's very important to check in with people that you notice just go get off the scene like that. So what a lot of people don't realize is that depression often does occur with anxiety. So you oftentimes, if you have depression, you have anxiety. If you have anxiety, you have depression. It's very, very common. And it's just very important to focus on coping strategies to boost your mood here. Connection with Allah, connection with friends, connection with a mental health provider, connection in a variety of forms, connection with who you are as a person. And then engaging in some kind of meditation can be very helpful. We do meditative practices anyway as a Muslim with our salat, with Quran recitation, but even taking it a step further and what experts are saying is that we should spend 7 minutes a day actually in meditation. And that means for 7 minutes, you close your eyes, you breathe until the count of 5, and you exhale to the count of 5. And you don't think about the past and you don't think about the future. You just think about where you are right in that moment. So as thoughts are coming to you, and they will, some people get discouraged with meditation because they think, oh, I should be thinking of nothing. You're never going to think of nothing. So just what you do is you ground yourself in the present. So if you're thinking about something in particular, what you do is you say, thinking about this friend, thinking about this problem, thinking about whatever. If you're hearing something distracting, you can even do it with kids around. You hear your kids laughing. Hearing my kid laughing, hearing my kid laughing. You smell food, smelling soup, smelling this. So it's just grounding you in what your experience is in that time. And so what this does is it helps with memory retention. It helps boost your mood. It helps slow down your mind so that you can think more clearly and make better decisions. And it also can help you realize where it is that you might need to work on something in your life. So if you do have a reoccurring thought that comes to you, maybe it's an indication of something you haven't been addressing, something you've been putting off that's very important to focus on. So that's something you should reflect upon. Absolutely. So those are just a few things. I mean, there's a lot. There's, I think you've talked about it a few times. Aromatherapy can be really a great thing. I've got even on my desk here that I use between clients, Stress Away from Young Living. It's got like a blend of lemongrass and
bring it down a bit.
I'll bring it down here too. Can you see it?
Bring a little bit back up again.
Yeah, I'm trying to multitask with the, yeah, so here you go. Stress Away from Young Living. And I like Young Living.
Put your hand, you got to put your hand behind it like those tutorial people.
Oh, I know. Here we go.
I'm joking.
There you go.
Dear.
Stress Away. I have like lavender, just plain lavender scents that I use. I put them in
candles,
inhales, and I was, I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, because I remembered the Prophet talking about how much he loved perfume, right? Peace be upon him. And I was like, I bet, we already had this in our sunnah and our tradition of like aromatherapy. And now it's like everybody, it's a kind of a big deal and people are talking a lot about it. And then that's when that book that Muhammad came out. This one that
I love this book.
Oh yeah, this all the perfumes of Arabia. So it's beautiful because it does take you on a journey with all the different scents. And
there's a whole chapter there. There's a whole chapter there that the author discusses on his own experience with depression. And he talks like a whole chapter on mental health, which I found to be very, very helpful.
Yeah, very well done. And so there's a lot of different things that you can use. You have to make your own, how you have a first aid kit like in your house and you know where it is. So if you got a cut, you would know where the alcohol is and the bandages. You have to make like a first aid kit for your mental health in your house. So you can take a little box and fill it with the things that you know are good for your mental health, your well-being, so that when you're in that state of anxiety or depression, because you're not going to be thinking straight in that moment, you quickly know what to grab. You've got some sense in there. You've got maybe an inspirational quote, pictures that remind you of something really positive, a book that has helped you through those challenging times. So create that box, create that toolkit for yourself so that you can rely on it.
I could include in there, when you mentioned inspirational quotes, your favorite hadith from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, favorite quotes from the Quran that are inspiring. And I know there are some books out there on inspirational quotes from either the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam or the Quran. So you can either find those books or find quotes that you find inspiring and put them there for you, right? Mm-hmm. So got some more comments coming in as people are they're really engaged with what you've been saying, Anisa, in terms of the aromatherapy and connecting. Yeah, alhamdulillah. So they're saying you can't always stay in that mindset. Well, no, of course not. And just like you're not always hungry or you're not always sleepy. You're not always going to be feeling this way. You haven't always felt this way and you will not always feel this way, inshallah. this is right now. And so we want to deal with it right now. What could work for you, whether it is medication or there's other spiritual practices or therapeutic strategies. Both Anisa and I can say that we believe in the holistic, including everything, and see what works for you. Absolutely. So this is
like some things, but there's so many things. Exercise, for example, they've done clinical studies and found that exercising 30 minutes a day is just as beneficial as taking an antidepressant for many of the patients that they worked with. They found, because it releases that hormone, that blissful hormone of the endorphins.
Adrenaline. Yeah.
So, there's so much. Like, we're just talking about a few things here today, but there's a plethora of things, and prevention is the best intervention. It's to have a daily self-care habit in place so that you're not, getting into this emergency mode later on. Especially, I know there's been some questions about panic attacks, and the best way to prevent some of those things is to actually have a daily practice where you're managing your anxiety so that it doesn't get out of control later on.
Somebody mentioned here, what if it's every single day? This is where Anisa and I would both say, please get medical attention and help, whether it is through your medical doctor or like your family doctor or an actual therapist, because this requires treatment. It's not going to go away on its own. And it's really hard. Somebody mentioned, what if it's your mother or your father? It becomes really hard when it's another person and you're trying to get them to go get help. It can be very challenging. In the end, they have to agree to go get help. You can't really force it on them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how hard if it's a friend or family you're concerned about, find a private time to sit one-on-one with them and talk about, from a first-person perspective, what you've been noticing, and that, I noticed that you haven't been yourself. You seem really down. Is everything okay? I'm feeling worried about you. And let them open up. And sometimes they become very angry when you do this, because you've pointed something out that they may have been trying to hide. Even if that happens, you can just reflect back that, it looks like you're getting angry about this. That's not my intention to make you uncomfortable. I'm just bringing this up because I really care about you, and I've noticed the change in you, and I'm concerned about your well-being because I want the best for you. So when you come from that place of respect and caring, sometimes even then somebody might not open up. They might not tell their story, but I find that when you acknowledge the resistance that you're seeing, they're more willing to keep going after that. And then you can explore with them what they've tried. Have you talked to somebody about this before? What's contributing to you feeling this way? And then don't just jump to go see a counselor right away. Just have a conversation, try to understand, connect with them. And once you make a connection, they'll be more willing to open up to any kinds of suggestion you make later on with regard to referrals.
So a few things here. All the questions are just shooting away here. So I'm going to address quickly. هؤلاء مسلمات. نعم, مسلمات. We are Muslims, obviously. First and foremost. They're talking about something that we can absolutely connect with here in terms of it's in so many cultures it's disrespectful to speak to our parents in a certain way. We're absolutely advocating respect here. Speak with your parents lovingly no matter what, but even more so when it comes to, if you suspect perhaps that they do have a mental health illness, to convince them lovingly, respectfully, to seek the help. That's very important to keep in mind here. Sometimes, yes, cultural norms can be very challenging in terms of trying to deal with some of the struggles that we're dealing with. But yeah, somebody mentioned here, what about when your own family is mentally draining or abusing you? That is challenging. Maybe we can address that more tomorrow, just because we have a lot more other questions here. But briefly, we can take a look at that. This one, always take a look at in terms of not emotionally engaging yourself. So when the pressure is coming from people that you live with, it becomes even more harder, and even more so now because we are stuck at home these days. So the idea is to kind of distance yourself emotionally and socially in the same space, is emotionally disengage yourself. So as it comes towards you, setting those boundaries, okay, these emotional boundaries, and not allowing yourself to jump to what they say. It's so easy. All these emotions are so contagious, so easy to jump to anger when somebody upsets you, obviously. So grounding yourself, taking a few breaths, count to 10 before you respond back in anger can also help you put that emotional distance so you don't react. So emotionally disengaging yourself can help when you are around people who are mentally draining you. What are your thoughts on that, Anisa?
Yes, I agree. And you have to visualize creating kind of this shield in front of your body, something that protects your aura and your energy, because it is very difficult being in a household where that kind of energy is there on a regular basis. So I validate how hard and difficult it is. And though they may be the ones that really need the immediate intervention for their mental health issues, the people on the receiving end also need the support. So I would say to you, please, like, this sounds like it's a complicated issue that we may not be able to get too deep in this time, but reach out, and see if we might be able to assist you with this, or reach out to a mental health professional and see how they can support you, inshallah, through it. But yeah, you're going to work with people even outside of your family. It might be a coworker who is very toxic or abusive, a supervisor. I worked for many difficult people in my life, and you learn when you work with difficult people, it teaches you to become more resilient and learn how to deal with any kind of challenging situation. So look at this as a way for you to build your mental strength, and that if you can look at this behavior and realize it's not about you, it's about them, and depersonalize it and try to bounce it off of your shield as much as possible, you'll find, inshallah, you'll be able to better cope. But of course, please reach out for support if you feel like you need more than that.
Okay, so a few more questions are coming in. There's an interesting one here that says, will there be any problem mentally or physically when you marry someone from different culture? How to bridge the gap and live a positive life? So that's a very interesting question. I think honestly, what I've seen from my work and life experience, friends, family, even if you're from the same family, because some people marry from the same family or clan, and you have the same language, you have the same food, you're growing up with the same customs, same culture, and there's still issues in the marriage. I think it comes down to personality as well, and the way your thoughts as well. So it could contribute to more challenges that you may experience, not necessarily mental or physical problem, but you definitely could experience more challenges that you're going to have to work through as a couple, I would imagine. What are your thoughts, Anisa?
Yeah, I mean, I think that being in any relationship and any marriage is very hard, no matter who you marry, no matter what cultural background. It is hard work, and you do have to be selective of who you choose as a spouse. Not, like I said, the mistake I see happening with a lot of folks in the community, and I know because I'm counseling them when they're on the verge of divorce, is there's this mentality and this kind of this unsaid message that's going around that I hear a lot, that, okay, if somebody is religious and they're a nice person, then just marry them. Like if they're God-fearing and they're nice, that's it. They're going to be right for you. So that's a part of the package, right? But you still have to get to know the person. You have to see if you have chemistry, you have things in common, you have similar values. You have to take your time to get to know the person who's in front of you. Doesn't matter what the cultural background is. My mom's American, she's a convert to Islam, and my dad is from Tunis, and I married a Lebanese man, and international together for 12 years.
Mashallah.
And it's we have the same values. We always put our deen before our culture. We have
that's the point.
Our relationship.
Can I just interject there, sister? That's the point, especially from an Islamic point of view, and people need to hear this. People miss out on this. That you have the same pathway of religion, goals in life. And I think a lot of people are so caught up with the materialism of weddings and what to wear, what to show off, and what to have, and all this. They forget that there's a marriage behind this wedding. And what are your goals towards God with this? It's not, that is so important. And that's, I find it's missing a lot, because there's some questions about divorce. Again, we're getting a little bit off topic here, but just to bring it back on track, perhaps we can engage in this topic another time, because it sounds like there's a lot of interest there. So I just want to address something here on Instagram that I see. إحنا نحكي عربي. And I think we answered the question, are you Iranian? The sister answered, جاوبت هي نص تونسية ونص أمريكية وزوجة واحد لبناني. أنا أصلي عراقية. They said, لأن يمكن حضراتكم ما تتكلمون إنجليزي. لا، نحكي إنجليزي وعربي إحنا، بس الأكثر الجماعة المتابعين يتكلمون إنجليزي. So that's why we're speaking English. Maybe another time we'll do something in Arabic. How do you feel about that, sister?
We try it.
Try? Do we know all of our psychological terms in Arabic, though?
No.
No. We'll just say كذا كذا كذا, anxiety, كذا كذا كذا, depression.
Exactly.
All right. So a very interesting comment here. We were talking about mindset earlier. So they're saying by calling it's just the mindset, doesn't it disprove the fact that Allah is the ultimate source of peace? So this sounds like a very spiritual and religious laden question, but I'd want to answer it from a psychological perspective here, which is both of our backgrounds. I would say, of course, Allah is the ultimate source of peace. We know this. This is just the word of Islam, submission. When we're talking about it from a psychological perspective here, what we're looking at here is that where is this peace coming from? So we were talking about, oh, you need more faith. You need to read more Quran. If you only did this, you will feel better. You won't be depressed, or you won't have anxiety. In the end, though, does not Allah give us the sources to do that? And that includes medical help. That includes psychological help. So in the end, it all comes back to Allah. And this is, of course, we're talking to Muslim clients here, of course, not our other clients, right? I don't know, I'm trying to verbalize it, but it's not coming out the way I'm putting it in my head. Do you understand what I'm trying to say, sister?
Yeah, I do. I think it's understandable.
Okay, so alhamdulillah, we've addressed that. There's a question here on YouTube, and I thought it was a very interesting question. So this person mentioned the other day that the session with Sheikh Nasser, it was sad to hear if we just stuck to seek professional help. I was wondering, can religion still benefit? So I want to clarify what he had actually said. He said that a lot of people come to the scholars and the sheikhs to get mental health support, thinking that only religion can help them at that point, or if it's an issue that's happening more than just once in a while. He said, please go seek professional help if that is the case. Of course, when you go speak with somebody who has knowledge in spiritual help and religious guidelines, it can contribute to your help. But the Sheikh was alluding to the fact that if you are constantly feeling like this for a long time, then you do need to go seek professional help. So I just wanted to clarify that. All right, so I'm going to go back to the questions here. So this is maybe something for students right now who are finishing up exams. How can I focus on my lessons when I'm in a bad mood and I can't even read a book?
Well, it'd be good, like you say, we talked about earlier, whenever you feel like you're in a bad mood, don't just say, I'm in a bad mood, I'm not going to do it. Get to the root of what's behind the bad mood. Anytime you notice in your day that you feel calm, you feel normal, but then you move from that point to a level of psychological distress. When you get to that point of distress, whether you call it bad mood or you call it feeling stressed out or burned out or whatever, you need to backtrack and say, hey, what happened here? How did I get from that point of feeling okay, and now I'm here at this point and I have a bad mood? Because unless you get to the underlying cause, we can't address it, right? So maybe it's a sign that you're burned out, maybe you're overworking yourself. And you need to take a break. We're actually more productive as human beings when we focus on self-care in between and we manage our stress, because then that lets us come back to what we need to do, such as reading a book with greater clarity. I talk to a lot of my clients are doctors and medical professionals, and they tell me they work themselves to the point of mental breakdown when they were doing their various degrees, or they were in residency, and it triggered, clinical depression because they weren't listening to their bodies. Okay, they just kept pushing through until their mind couldn't take it anymore. So you have to be kind to your brain. It's an amana from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a trust given to you. So that is your priority over your academics or whatever else it is that you need to do. And I think that once you figure out what's causing the bad mood, you'll be able to de-escalate the bad mood, inshallah.
Ahsanti. Can I just add to that a strategy that we use all the time with students? And I learned this from, her name is Dr. Christine Pedesky, who is one of the gurus of cognitive behavioral therapy. And we did a training with her a few years back, and she taught us the 5-minute rule. Have you come across this one before, Anisa?
Yeah.
So the idea is very simple here, is whatever goal or task that you have at hand that you don't feel like doing, set the alarm for 5 minutes. Just go do it for 5 minutes. If after 5 minutes you find yourself, I can continue doing this, keep going. You just did the hardest thing, which is to get started. Now, if after 5 minutes you find yourself, no, I don't feel like doing this, I don't want to do it, that's okay. This is where people kind of feel bad or give up. And so we're saying, no, don't give up. Don't feel bad. You've accomplished the goal. The goal set was to do this for 5 minutes alone. Done it for 5 minutes. Pat yourself on the back, leave it. Go do something else, come back to it later and try this again. Inshallah, you'll be able to do it after that. Now, if you have a deadline or an exam tomorrow, maybe going for a 10-minute walk. A 10-minute walk can give you 2 hours worth of study energy. So it's really important to give that brain a bit of a break, but sometimes you do need a little bit of a motivator, and this is a great strategy to motivate you get started. So I'm going to go on here with the questions here. Don't know what to choose from. There's okay, so here's a good one. How can family members help, whether you're dealing with anxiety or depression? What kind of environment should be created? What do you think, Anisa?
I think it goes back to checking in. Whenever you want to help somebody who you know is struggling with anything in life, always just ask them, what would help you right now? You're struggling, I see you struggling with A, B, and C. How can I support you? How can I help you? Because a lot of times we like to give advice to people. We like to just jump to suggestions, and we like to think that we know what's good for everyone else around us without actually, give me 1 second. I'm gonna get back on the Instagram because an
it's all right. Got cut off on Instagram.
For that, if you got cut off on Instagram,
I'll jump back in a moment. Yeah, keep talking.
But I'm going to go ahead and continue with that question.
Yeah, you go ahead while I open it up
what's
again.
best for people. Check in, inshallah, and say, I see you struggling with your depression. What would be helpful to you? What's contributing to this? And then talk about how you can support that person with resources, with a variety of different resources. Can I help connect you? I think it'd be a good idea to connect you with a mental health provider. I know somebody that really helped such and such person with their own struggles. What do you think if we connect you with that person? It just depends.
Can you join us on Instagram, Anisa?
Yeah, let me get back on Instagram now. Okay.
No, that's a really good.
Apologize, everyone, just multitasking here with the technology.
No, we've had to do quite a bit of that today. But alhamdulillah, we're managing well.
No, I can't hear you. Okay.
We've had to do quite a bit of that today, but alhamdulillah, we're managing well.
We're making it work.
All right.
All right.
There we go.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Are we in?
All right, we're back.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Okay, we're back. So I was just answering the question of what was my question even? I forgot.
So it had to do with in terms of how can family support, how can family help when somebody's dealing with anxiety or depression? So you were saying that sometimes we think we know what they need.
Mm-hmm.
Along the lines of that, I would just add perhaps is rather than constantly being, what do you need? What do you want? Are you okay? Are you okay? Because that can be a little bit annoying right?
Yeah.
But just to show support and love. That's really important when they do come to you, to be non-judgmental, to be supportive and appreciative, perhaps cooking their favorite meals, you know, helping them do the hygienic stuff that they really cannot do at the moment, and just being there for them. That can go a long way, just showing that.
Yeah, good. Just connecting, and
Yeah.
even just as something as simple as giving them a hug, telling them something you're proud of that they're doing. Sometimes families get frustrated and they're like, "You haven't done anything all day long. What's going on?" You know, don't look for the negative. Keep looking for their strengths and acknowledge those strengths so that they can build on that.
Here's an anxiety-related question. How to overcome unexplained anxiety, fear, and overthinking? I think this is a really good question. Yeah. Keyword unexplained. Unexplained. Yeah, you just feel it, like you're just.
Interesting what you say, unexplained.
Yeah.
You know, usually it's very rare that there isn't some kind of underlying reason for anxiety. It's very rare that one day you wake up in the morning and you're all of a sudden just anxious and, you know, you're experiencing a phobia or you're experiencing panic attacks, or, you know, usually there's some kind of cause that triggers this anxiety. So whether it's our own belief systems, whether it's our own environmental stressors, even just like life events like having a baby can cause some anxiety or depression. That's why we hear about postpartum depression. So the pandemic, like we talked earlier about how some people who've never experienced any kind of ongoing depression on a clinical level may now, because of the pandemic, be triggered by that. So there are external forces, there are internal ways that we deal with situations that usually will contribute to anxiety, fear, overthinking. So I think the first step is to figure out, okay, when was the onset of your anxiety? What was happening around that time? And then try to figure out what that activating event was that may have triggered that, and reflect on how that event made you feel, how it made you behave, because you can't overcome anything without understanding the root cause. And if you're really, really stuck, like, you know, I have no idea where this, I've tried to think about it, I've tried to backtrack and to figure out what year this started and what was happening, and I still can't figure it out, then that's a time to see about getting professional support, maybe someone helping you, especially cognitive behavioral therapists who can help you process that emotion and what might be contributing to it. And maybe there's something subconsciously that hasn't been addressed that through the sessions you realize, wow, like I hadn't realized how significant that issue was that I was dealing with growing up within my family. I thought that was nothing. I can see now how that contributed to my current anxiety as a young adult. So what about you? Do you have anything to add?
I think you've explained it beautifully, very thoroughly. Bless you. Yeah. Yeah. I have another question here from somebody, and it relates back to family with depression, and it's great that people are asking these, because I think a lot of people can relate to them, right? So the question says here, what can you do if your family members are not willing to help you help another family member who has severe mental health issues, and instead make it hard for you to help the person? Yeah,
so your family members are making it difficult for you to help another family member.
Yeah, they're not willing to help you help another family member. And there's only so much, and I've actually had to deal with a case like that where the wife was dealing with an abusive, narcissistic type husband, and she found out that he has borderline personality disorder. She was seeing a therapist because she thought there was something wrong with her, which is the classic case of what a narcissist borderline person will do. They'll make you feel that you were the crazy one, that it's all your fault. So this woman was seeking therapy to get support, and her therapist says, have you thought that perhaps this person is dealing with this mental health or this personality disorder? So when she found out and she went and researched it even more, she went to one of the family members and told them, I think, you know, your family member has ABC, and this person was very hesitant. She had to go to the in-laws, who were very hesitant and were almost insulted. How dare you say our son has this? So they projected it back onto her. Now, this woman for a long time tried to get support because she was fighting for her family. And what I recall in the end, what happened, it got so severe, she had to leave. She ran away from that situation and has moved on and created a better life for herself and her child. However, it's, excuse me, there wasn't support. There was not, sorry. Deep breath. I have been going nonstop with these guys to help.
Now you've had that back home for a while.
I've had it for a month now. For,
All those talks you've been doing and presentations. You're becoming.
I wish I could. I've got my healing cup here, or what Sheikh Azhar Nasser called the other day, the most Shia cup I've ever seen. I've got 4 of them. I've got different themes. And I've got my counseling one that says, counseling has taught me that it's not my fault. In any case, gotta have humor. In any case, what happened in this situation, she tried to seek support from other family members to get the help for this person. However, it was really hard. And in the end, she did what she had to do. She did her absolute best. She stuck it out for a few more years, but it just got worse. And it happened. So this is, again, a topic we can discuss in more detail tomorrow. But to answer it specifically here to this question, you have to try your best. Get the information from reliable resources that you can share with the family. If you're doing an intervention, you're coming from a place of love and support, not judgment and pointing fingers. And it's really important to come across with love and care. And alhamdulillah, we can say the last few years, there's been a lot of awareness now around mental health, alhamdulillah, within our communities, where people are becoming more aware and they're becoming more open. And there's not so much the same stigma as a few years back if you were to go get help. That it doesn't mean that you're crazy, but rather you're dealing with a mental illness just like you are with a physical illness. And so if we can work on it that way, when we're dealing with family members who are making it difficult, say, hey, ABC, this is happening. This is just like a physical illness. If this person's dealing with diabetes and they're fainting all the time, their insulin sugar levels are all over the place, or they've got cardiovascular challenges, are we not going to go get the medication and change lifestyle to get them help? So I think if we use the language here to make it understood, if we're using this type of language, then people would probably more likely to go get help around that and showing love and support. If in the case of the story that I told here, where people are not willing to get the help, then you know what? You need to take care of yourself. There comes a point where enough is enough and you need to take care of yourself. And I know it's so hard, and this is not a cookie cutter solution, because it does really depend on the situation.
Yeah, I feel like there's a backstory, like it's one of those questions where it's like I would say something and then the person would come back and be like, yeah, but I tried that and this is what happened. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes with these unique situations, you really do need to reach out to a professional to help you troubleshoot what to do next, or even those crisis lines we talked about earlier, like the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline or the NISA helpline. You can call them and ask these kinds of hypothetical questions and see how they can help you troubleshoot, because there's some amazing resources out there where actually there's like even crisis support teams that will like come to your home and provide you with therapy in your house in a crisis. It's something that would be provided by the health department. And so depending on the situation and what's happening, you can find a way around these things. So
absolutely. And what's nice now is that we have so much more culturally adapt services. And I can see this in Ottawa, where we now have a new Muslim service, the Muslim Community Social Services. My friend Shawana and her team founded it, and they're using that. And what they do, one of the services they do is liaisons and links between, for example, the Children's Aid Society that our community is terrified of. And they teach them a lot, give them a lot of psychoeducational presentations on Ramadan, cultural norms, Islamic norms, and things like that, family dynamics, because a lot of things that we do can be seen very odd and different by other cultures. For example, Muharram. Right? The kids are staying up late, they're going and beating themselves. What is that all about, right? And so when they hear about it, it sounds very strange, but then you have a lot of services that are normalizing what Muslims do, and especially from different cultures. So people are not quick to judge and jump to this being as wrong and judgmental and abuse, et cetera, et cetera. So alhamdulillah, we do have this, and that is a comfort now, and it's growing. I would say, despite Islamophobia out there, I would say that there's a lot of services out there that are supportive. So we're rounding up near the end now. There are a few more questions. Here's an interesting religious psychological one. How do you overcome the mindset of, dang it, I missed prayer again, I messed up, and feeling unworthy? So being so hard on yourself, because that can lead to more anxiety in terms of worrying about missing prayer and worrying if you're somebody who is unworthy in the eyes of God, but also perhaps feeling very sad and perhaps not getting up for the salah after that because you're constantly sleeping. So we have both anxiety and depression here. What are your thoughts on this one, sister?
Yeah, this is a delicate rope to cross, because it's very easy to become too hard on yourself. At the same time, even in the Quran, it talks about the nafs al-lawama, right? The self-accusing part of ourselves, that when we commit an error or mistake, there's a part of us that is going to take account, right? And is going to feel a sense of regret for what it has done. So we all have that innate within us where, we do need to look back at our life and on certain situations, like maybe missing a prayer, and recognize that, feel a little bit of a sense of remorse that I need to change, right? However, it's important not to over-identify with that feeling to the point that now you're beating yourself up, you've lost your whole sense of confidence. Because really the first step in addressing any issue or any problem you're facing is to recognize that you have a problem. That's the first step in addressing any problem, is to take ownership of it, to recognize it. And then once you do that, you have to troubleshoot. Okay, what's missing here? What's standing in my way with prayer? What are some of the reasons I keep missing prayer or missing fajr? Am I distracted? Am I overwhelmed? Maybe I'm not sleeping at an appropriate time where I feel well enough to get up on time. Maybe I need to change my sleep habits so that this doesn't happen again. Maybe I need to ask family members to remind me and to do like a salat buddy system where they come in and they wake me up.
Salat buddy system, yeah.
Yeah, so they just, all these wonderful apps on the phone.
What about throwing a bucket of water on their face? Is that a tradition I read somewhere? I could have sworn I read this. Barakallah, the wife that throws a bucket of water. Don't quote me on this. I got to go find it. I remember reading this somewhere.
Going around too, the bucket of water. Oh God.
I don't think the partner is going to appreciate that. That's pretty drastic. Have you heard of the
positive association with prayer? That's for sure.
It reminds me of the joke of the mom that runs into the room. I've said this before, but I love this one because it just hits the point. Get up, there's a fire. And the kids are like, what, where is it? In Jahannam if you don't get up and pray.
Oh my gosh. I know. Yeah. I've seen these going around, these different jokes, and they're fun. They are funny, but it's I find that in life, like being hard on oneself, like shaming yourself, it doesn't really lead to sustained change at the end of the day. Like what happens sometimes is you get too hard on yourself and shaitan comes in and says, you see, you don't even deserve to go to the masjid and be a part of these groups. You don't even deserve to go and commemorate all these different occasions that are going on, because look at you. I mean, who are you? You keep making these mistakes. So this is where West sometimes comes in. So, if somebody's on the floor and they're putting their hand up and they're reaching out to you for help, you don't kick them while they're down, right? I mean, you bring them up, you uplift them. And that's the same thing with ourselves. We have to uplift ourselves as well and have hope that, okay, like rather than me just beating myself up, let's figure out how we can get back on track. I fell off the horse yesterday. I'm going to get back on the horse tomorrow, inshallah. And these are the different changes I'm going to make to have that happen.
Thank you so much. It is about recognizing, like you said, recognizing when we do something, but also looking at how to improve it and not being so hard on yourself, because you constantly push yourself down like that. It's hard to get up. What you said was beautiful. And there it is. Yeah. And somebody mentioned beating yourself down is very common. I was trying to get the cat. So I'm moving around too much. He's like around here somewhere. Hopefully I'll grab him. So here's another question before we finish up soon. How to cope with feelings of inadequacy in my studies? I'm scared about, I think they mean that they're going to be graduating soon.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to answer that while I grab the cat, Anisa?
Yeah, so it's common. It is very common for people to feel a low sense of confidence in themselves at various points in their academic career. And it's important to figure out what's contributing to that. Is it something that a family member or friend, somebody that said to you, where is this coming from? Is this coming external? Is this coming internal? If it's coming internally, especially, it's very important. Even externally, it's important to basically take that thought and make it more balanced and make it more realistic, because clearly, you're not inadequate, because you're almost done with your undergraduate degree. I can see if you're scared about starting graduate school, it means you've almost finished your bachelor's in whatever you're doing. So you can look back and say, well, I'm almost done, alhamdulillah. Pat yourself on the back, you've made it this far. And then just have hope that just the way you got through those experiences, Allah is going to help you get through graduate school as well. Every journey begins with a single step, and you have to at least take the first step and just take that day one day at a time and see what unfolds. And it's all about that mindset. And we've got Lowe's here.
And he's pushing against me, and I knocked the screen behind me. Sorry, so distracting. He comes in, and now he wants to run away. You say salam? Now he's pet therapy. He can really help with depression.
Yeah, I used to organize different events on campus, and one of them was like pet therapy days, and we call it pause, PAWS, before finals. Pause before.
That's so cute.
And it was the most popular event, because we'd bring in these, these therapy dogs. They would come in and they were well trained, and students would just enjoy that part so much. But yeah, they definitely help reduce your stress.
Same thing in our clinic. We had a dog
that would come in. They bring him in every weekend.
Why don't you look at our people here, our friends here, and our students loved it. They come in the waiting room and they have the dog, and he'd come sit on a special carpet that he had, and people would just come sit around him and pet him. And this guy doesn't, I'm not sure. He comes to me, I get him, knocks down the screen, and now he doesn't want to stay. Huh? You gonna stay? He's not purring. He's not happy. But definitely, this would be something I would recommend for people if you can afford to get a pet, especially during this time. If there's a store nearby that's still open, that you can get some kind of pet to keep you distracted in a healthy way, because you'd have to take care of this pet, whether it's feeding them or cleaning up after them, and especially a pet like a cat.
The only reason they're not ending their lives is because they have a pet taken care of, and what would happen to this pet. So really, it's amazing how that intervention of having a pet can really give somebody hope and help them manage their own stressors.
Alhamdulillah, definitely. So on that note, I think we've answered most of our questions here in regards to anxiety and depression. Please, oh, there we go. And he leaves with hair. Please do not forget that if you are dealing with suicidal thoughts and you are very depressed, like Sister Anisa said, depending where you are in the world, please use the crisis hotlines that are available in your region. Google them, look them up, and contact somebody. Or if there's a friend or family member that you can trust, please do reach out to them. We don't want you to struggle and suffer alone. This is why we're doing these programs, to have more awareness around mental health, especially during the pandemic, because this is a place that we're all in that's new for us. We're still all trying to figure out how to deal with it, how to handle it, how to manage it, and we're all learning as we're going along. And I think offering, excuse me, these types of programs, you get a chance to talk to people who are working in the field and working with clients who are struggling perhaps with the same things as you are. So I'm just going to delete this question so we can see each other. And was there anything else, sister, that you wanted to add to this?
No, I mean, I just thank you so much for having me back on again, and Allah bless you for all the important work you've been doing just nonstop. I see you bringing some amazing speakers on, and I know that I know everyone's benefiting, mashallah. So may Allah give you the strength to keep doing what you're doing, and pray for you and your family and all of those who are tuning in, that you stay
Stay in the best of
safe and stay in the best of physical and
inshallah. Inshallah, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time, I'll be speaking with Sister Lisa Vogel, who herself is a domestic abuse survivor and as well as against domestic abuse advocate. Mashallah, a single mother who co-founded the Verona Modest line that you find at Macy's. Inshallah, she'll be joining us tomorrow through Insta Ahlul Bayt, as well as through the Muslim Counsellor YouTube, as well as Facebook for people who are wondering where else you can find this. You can find this recording, although you have to forgive me the technicalities today, but we made it. We got through it. That you can find this on YouTube and Facebook. Please do share this with people that you feel that could benefit from this discussion. In addition to that, Sister Anisa does have a private practice. So if you have any questions, you can find her on Instagram, on Facebook, and she has her own website as well. Just look her up, contact her, and inshallah, if you're the right fit, she can either be your therapist or refer you on as needed. Excuse me. So, is there any more questions here that people are asking? So the sister is from the States and I'm here from Canada, and we both work in mental health, and we're also friends.
Yeah.
We're friends. Our daughters are friends as well. Alhamdulillah. One last bless her heart. What a sweetheart, bless her. I also want to give a special thank you to Bronze Digitals, who have been making these amazing posters. So if you need, and this was subhanAllah, again, during these times, how people offer their supports and services, this team came and said, can we please design your posters? Were my previous posters that bad? But they came and offered their support to doing this. So a great thank you, bless you, Ma'jureen, inshallah. And if you need anything digital, please do check out the Bronze Digitals team. Bless you all for that, and thank you for all the tech people who've helped us and helped me set this up today. Inshallah, next time we'll have it all going. So if you have any more questions, please DM both the sister and myself, and we'll do our best to answer as well as refer, inshallah. And if you have suggestions for future topics, Sister Anisa and I'd be more than happy to do another live Q&A, but let us know what it is that you would like to discuss specifically on mental health. And then we'll do our best, inshallah, to do that. So just inshallah, muqaddaman Ramadan Mubarak in the few days coming up, and prayers to all of those who are afflicted, who are in need of du'as for shifa. So inshallah, you're in our prayers, and our love goes out to everybody, inshallah. So again, thank you very much, sister. Bless you. Send our salams to the family. And thank you and bless you, everybody, wherever you are, all over the world, inshallah. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Take care.